Everyone. Know everyone. Right, then we'll go straight into the meeting then. So I'll look to the company secretary. Any apologies?
We've got apologies from Ben Madden. He was going to send Sue Mellor, but she's also given her apologies.
Thank you. Any declaration of conflicts of interest?
Just want to pick up today relating to Canet Chris and his role as the PCB SRO finance role. We'll capture that in the register for next time, Mike.
Thank you. Item 140, minutes of the Board of Directors held on the 1st of November. People want to approve that as a correct minute? Yeah, thank you. Then we'll move on to the action sheet, item 141.
Nothing to raise at this point, Mike. There are 3 items listed for today's agenda and all included on the agenda for consideration later.
Okay, thank you. Then item 142 then, colleagues, the patient story. I look to our Chief Nursing Officer to do the introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Today's special story has been pulled from our patient's feedback in regards to clinics that are kind of running 30 minutes over. So they've given us feedback in terms of how we can improve that. So it's kind of demonstrate how we respond to issues that are raised through the patients. And Adam Lucas will be leading on this story for us. Good morning, Adam.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. So my name's Adam Lucas. I'm a digital analyst for the I3 department at the Trust. So my patient story is a bit of a mixture of a personal story and a professional one, really. I suppose it started with my partner was on a 2-week wait referral to the dermatology department, and she was obviously quite apprehensive about the appointment, and she works in Morecambe. So when it came to actually the date of the clinic appointment, Lancaster traffic being what it was absolutely jam-packed, and she was struggling to get through to the hospital. So packed in town and ran up to the hospital to make sure she got to the clinic in time. Managed to get to the clinic in time, no problem. When she got there, the clinic was overrunning. She wasn't sure, they weren't sure exactly how long by, but it was overrunning, and she was sat in the clinic for probably about 10-15 minutes before she gave me a call to say, oh, she thinks she's overrunning. She doesn't know when she was going to be seen. Now she was apprehensive about going to the bathroom in case she was then called in and missed her appointment being shouted out. So I nipped up to the department just to sit with her and make sure she was okay. Now the thing with the dermatology department is probably about a year prior to today is myself and Mark Hadwin had put in a digital display board that displays clinic wait times that allow the reception staff to display all the running clinics, display which waiting room the patient should be in for those clinics, and just update the wait times. Now that particular board has been switched off for a long time. So I spoke to some of the staff and just tried to gauge some information as to why it wasn't being used, and there's varying reasons as to why. There'd been lots of management changes and things like that, and some communication needs and things between different members of staff. And then I managed to get hold of the new manager and spoke to her about the benefits of what it was. She wasn't even aware that what it was being used for, to be fair. It was just an unused TV on the wall from her perspective. So what we did is we went through the actual system. I showed her how it all worked. We trained up their staff, and we've now implemented that new waiting room display board in dermatology, so we can correctly display wait times for patients when they enter the actual department. So it's pretty much straight in front of you as you walk in, so patients can see this. And we, this is tech that we've built based on my own personal experience as a patient. When I was a patient down at the Walton Centre, everything was just displayed with clinic wait times, and it just makes your life as a patient much simpler. You're just fully aware of exactly how long you're going to wait. You can nip to the bathroom, you can grab a coffee coffee if you needed to, that sort of thing. So I can just show you a quick demo of it if you'd like to have a look at it. I'll just click that. So this is what it looks like. It's just up on a 40-inch TV up on the wall, and I'll just pop the little video. And this is how the actual staff would update the wait times. So this is just a little video on how the reception staff update the board that then updates the big TV that's up on the screen. So the reception staff can do this from their PC. It displays all of the clinics that are running for that morning or that afternoon, and it automatically updates. So the staff don't have to do anything with regards to typing in the names of the actual clinics or anything like that. We do have some separate tech that also is a self-checking kiosk that we'll be pushing out into other departments, which we've done for ENT and orthopedic outpatients, and dermatology next in line to get one of those as well. So the staff basically choose the clinic, they select which waiting area that clinic's associated to, and then they just type the wait time in. Very simple, very quick process that updates the display board, and patients are then fully aware of exactly how long they've got to wait. A little Raspberry Pi on the back of the TV just refreshes every few minutes and updates with the display board. So it's a really simple, quick solution to just improve patient experience and just give them that visibility of exactly how long we're waiting. So that's now been implemented. I'm happy to say that dermatology have had that on ever since we've had those conversations with the manager. And they are feeding back that it has improved on their patient experience within the waiting room.
Adam, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I open it up for questions?
Thank you, Adam.
Adam, if I can start with my question first, if that's okay, colleagues. I think that's a really good example of what happens in real life to our patients, relatives, etc. when they come in. So my question is, has your wife encountered this now, and what does she think of it?
So she hasn't. However, my daughter had a dermatology appointment about a week ago. So I was back up in dermatology, but with my daughter this time, and it was up and running for that. So it was quite nice to be up there again. Well, but with it up and running. So my daughter's experienced it, but my partner hasn't been back up there, thankfully. So yeah, but it has been a positive experience.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll start with Carrie, then Hugh. Carrie?
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your story, Adam. I just wondered, on a wider learning basis, really, is there a possibility that this is happening in other areas, that, you know, TV screens are switched off? Has anybody done a walk around? Because it is a really good idea, and I'm just wondering if we would have pockets in other areas where it could be happening.
Yeah, so we've only rolled this out to several departments so far. So orthopedic outpatients have kind of been our test department. So they got one first. They've also got the self-checking kiosk as well. So we've developed an in-house self-checking kiosk that actually, when patients, just like GPs, when you arrive yourself, but our self-checking kiosks actually arrive you in Lorenzo as well. So it actually marks you from booked to attended, so it takes some of the work away from the receptionists. So they've got one of those. ENT have just got the self-checking kiosk, but are also about to get a board. So dermatology and rheumatology have also got some as well. So we're just slowly trying to push them out to as many departments as we can, but just trying to identify the areas that need it most. So happy to take any advice from people that are sort of crying out for these.
Thank you.
Okay. Hugh?
Carrie's asked my question.
Oh, thank you, Hugh. Adrian?
Thanks, Adam, for the presentation and just talking us through it. And I know the great work that i3 do in bringing digital really to the whole trust. My question was really going to be about staff's engagement with this. Are they embracing this proactively? Is there a degree of resistance? Can you just give us a a feel for that, and I'm thinking from a people and skills perspective, is there any work that we need to do to create a more digital native set of skills across our staff base? Thank you.
Yeah, no, great question. Because yes, absolutely, there's always resistance. Whenever we implement something new like this to start with, there's always instant resistance to this is new, this is different, this is additional, work or things for us to do. However, the proof's in the pudding once it's up and running, because actually what it does is it reduces traffic to reception desks, it reduces the amount of repetitive questions that get asked. So actually once it's up and running, they start to see the benefits. What we've made a habit of doing is making the things that we're implementing as simple as possible. Like you just saw from the video, there's maybe 3-4 clicks to actually update that board. You don't need to be a super technician to be able to fill some of these things in. People have been through Lorenzo training that sat on our reception desk. So if you can operate Lorenzo, you can definitely operate some of the FX forms that we're implementing, because we're making them as easy as possible. But we're also making them so they'll integrate with our EPR system. We're doing a lot of work with the patient portal that's about to be going live soon, which will be another massive piece of work. And all of this is part of one big ecosystem that we're pushing out there to improve patient experience across the board, with bookings, letters, self-checking kiosks, visibility over clinic appointments and everything. So we've taken a step back and looked at everything as a big picture about making life easier for patients, but also integrating it into EPRs and making life easier for staff as well.
You okay with that? Yeah.
May I just come back, Chair? Just in terms of the skill set for our workforce, do you believe that that's something that we need to look at, Adam, to improve engagement? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the work Janet Manning and the team are doing with the digital champions, it's bang on point. That's really what we need to be pushing more of. There's lots of that happening at the moment. As much weight as we can throw behind that kind of work is vital. I think it showed when we rolled out Office 365. The champions were vital in pushing out. It's the same with this digital champions project, especially with new EPRs coming and all the rest of the work we've got ahead of us. I think that's a vital thing we need to push.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Adrian. Alison?
Yeah. Adam, with its integration into the electronic patient record, are you able to tell which clinics are overrunning consistently over 30 minutes late?
So we aren't pulling the wait times, because we've made it so flexible to change, so the staff can just quickly input it as a bit of free text. We're not pulling the wait times. We're just allowing staff to quickly type it in as free type. So we're not recording that. We're not capturing that data as it is. It's something we could do if it's something that we're interested in capturing. But it would need some further development. But it is something we could capture and store. But it does, as always, it relies on the staff filling it in. I have seen some of these boards up and running, but with no wait times added on, and things like that. So again, with everything, it relies on a bit of compliance from staff actually completing the right fields and things like that at the right times to give you valuable data.
Okay. So my supplementary question then was really around, I think it's great that patients are being kept more informed, because when you do go for an outpatient appointment and you don't know how long the clinic's overrunning, it is really, really frustrating. But then from an organisational point of view, do we know who our frequent flyers are that always overrun the clinics, and do we understand why those clinics are overrunning? So is it because we've stuffed them too full with the wrong balance of news and reviews, or is that because in the desire to provide a really good experience and a really good explanation to people attending clinic, the clinic slots just aren't long enough?
Adam, I'm gonna...
Yeah, there is. Oh, sorry.
Chief Operating Officer to respond to that specific question. Then I'll ask you to come in.
Thanks. The short answer is no. I think our clinic templates are in fact quite generous, certainly compared to some other clinic templates. So I certainly don't think it's because the clinics are overburdened with either slots that are too short or too many slots. In terms of monitoring, as Adam's described, that's a manual workaround that they've done in that department. So that's not, and it's probably not on our list of priority areas for digital time in outpatients, because we've got some very rudimentary things to do in that outpatient space.
Thanks.
Yeah, just to add to that, the actual so the audit of clinics and overrunning, there is an audit form within the EPR which we've added in extensions, which is supposed to be filled in at the end of every clinic. It's not widely used, if I'm honest, but it is there for people to capture why a clinic has overrun and by how long and how many slots. Some departments are great at filling it in. Not every clinic is, to be completely honest. So if you can run a report, we've just updated them a couple of weeks ago for the maxillofacial department because they wanted a bit more granular data, and they provide really great information, but you've got to fill it in. So it's the same thing. It's that compliance of filling that information in at the end of a clinic if you want that information back out.
I'm going to ask the Chief Exec to end this item, but the comment you made there, Adam, will make some of the non-execs ears prick up. So I'm sure the execs will go away after the meeting and consider that issue of compliance, perhaps just brief us about the compliance is improving as we go forward.
Thanks, Chair. Adam, thank you for that. It's a really good example of how, I guess, digital can start to inform how we improve some areas that I think are really difficult to kind of improve. As Alice just said, this is about understanding, I guess, evidence in a symptom rather than looking at a cure, but it does help with patient experience. So two quick points, Chair, if I may. One is we've obviously immobilised as an organisation our outpatient transformation programme under our ambition for the SOF 3 to 2 and beyond for improvement. So Alison, to your point, and Scott's absolutely right, we have small amounts of priority for digital transformation. So where we're putting our, I guess, the biggest bang for our buck is looking at completely reviewing the outpatient model. So it may mean that over a period of time, things like DNAs and long running clinics may be something that in our risk appetite is okay, because we've got a line of sight of how we're structuring the changes needed in outpatients to make that not something that would feature in the future. So I think we probably need to just bring to life for board what the outpatient transformation programme is under the TIB agendas that we bring forward. The second point for me is I'm talking to Jane over recent weeks about digital and its importance to our transformation journey, and having more board visibility about the digital strategy, our broad ambitions around digital development, not just our electronic patient record, because that's just one example Adam's just given about a myriad of the ways digital can support transformation and improvement. So, Chair, with your permission, I know Jane's going to speak to Paul about having part of our board workshop time over the next few months to bring to life digital.
Yeah, colleagues happy to accept that as a proposal. Thank you. Adam, thank you. You know, these things really do affect people's lives realistically. So that intervention that you did, I think I ought to express the thanks of the board to you for taking that action and for coming today actually and updating us. Thank you. These tiny incremental changes do have a dramatic effect on people's lives. So thank you for that. Chief Nurse, anything you wish to end on?
No, just thank you.
Adam,
No problem. Thanks,
on
everyone.
that next item. Hopefully we'll meet again, but take care. Bye.
Thank you.
now.
Bye-bye.
Yes, I thought somebody might join in with the call. Okay. Next item then, item 143, Chair's report. You have it in front of you. Just a couple of things to add on. Yesterday afternoon, the Council of Governors had the vote for a new lead governor. Constitutional process was followed. The vote was held in the meeting. And the Council of Governors have voted in Shirley Ann Wilson as the new lead governor for the Council of Governors. Shirley Ann Wilson is here today. She's on the screen. I've also invited as chair Lorraine Crossley Close to today's meeting because the lead governor's report, which is on the agenda, obviously had been written while Lorraine was the lead governor, and it seems appropriate that she should therefore present her final report to the board. And that's been agreed with Shirley Ann. Shirley Ann Wilson, up to yesterday afternoon, was the deputy lead governor. So now that Shirley Ann is the lead governor, we will follow the constitutional process and ask the Council of Governors to vote in a deputy, and that process and an update will be given to you in due course. The other item on mine is the Council of Governors agreed to my request that we should have 2 deputy chairs of the board. And I will be talking to Sarah and Karen about how we move forward on that. But it has been, we have consulted, it has been agreed. So I am now putting a formal proposal to this board following consultation with the Council of Governors that you also agree to 2 deputy chairs. Yeah, that's gone through. Thank you. After the minutes, stop to the finance director. The winter challenges the winter challenges will be covered more fully in the agenda and in the chief execs. We have developed in the trust a shadow board programme for those directors who are seeking career moves into executive positions, and it's a modular programme run externally. We had our first shadow board yesterday in the Quaker House in Kendal. Some of the participants in that programme will be observing the board today as well. My own view was it was a very, very productive and interesting morning going through the shadow board, and that will continue moving forward. The company secretary is involved in the administration. Anything you want to say, Paul?
No, it was great to have the opportunity to kind of support colleagues on an aspirant journey to their future careers. The discussions that we had were very insightful, and I hope that they learned a great deal. The feedback that I've had from colleagues, Mike, was that I was looking forward to the next session. I feel it's going to be something of value to them.
Thank you. And then I know we've got financial pressures in the system again. They will be covered in the agenda. But I just wanted to end by saying this is the final board of 2023. It's been an interesting 12 months. But I think the trust has achieved great strides. It's not the end of the financial year yet, so it's too early for us to really make a judgment. But we are out of soft 4, we're into soft 3. We had, I think, an honest CQC report, which gave a true picture of the trust, and our statutory sections have been lifted. The trust staff have just been absolutely outstanding, I think. Some areas of the trust, of course, there is outstanding work going on. Our ambition is to get to soft 2. I think the work that we're doing with colleagues and the work that they're doing will, I think, help the trust get to that soft 2. So on behalf of the board, to the board, Merry Christmas, and for the colleagues throughout the trust and our Council of Governors, Merry Christmas as well, and see you all in 2024. Any questions on the chair's report? No. Okay, colleagues, then we'll move on to the chief exec's report, item 144.
Thanks, Chair. So as normal, I'll give a brief update in 3 areas around the national, kind of regional and trust agendas. But I'm just going to start off with a thank you, which I can do in these 4. It's great that I've got this platform as chief executive, but a very specific thank you following what was a very difficult weekend across South Lakes in particular. For those of us that live and work in the area, it was a surprise to see that much snowfall that fast, and the disruption and the challenge that it gave across the county was significant. You'll have seen a lot of it on social media and national media. So I live about 2 minutes from here and saw it firsthand kind of fall very rapidly, and checked in with our site. Slimwire was great. Our deputy chief nurse is the strategic on call over the weekend, so checked in with Lynn. And just over the course of the weekend and Monday morning, heard just some really, really fantastic feedback of people going well above and beyond, including, you know, with our district nurses and community nurses, using personal kind of 4x4s of family members to get to vulnerable patients, walking in some instances through snow to make sure that patients were seen, spending hours and hours over shift times in places like Millom and others just to make sure that no one was left without care. It is something I am used to seeing now, having been at the Trust for 10 years in January, but it never fails to kind of please me when I see that behaviour play out in our organisation with our teams and across partners. So just a very specific thank you to colleagues that worked over the Saturday, Sunday, Monday period under very difficult circumstances. We didn't have any major incidents. We didn't declare anything untoward. We just got about our business, treated each other kindly and did what we do in this part of the world, which was great to see. So thank you for our teams for that. From a national perspective, there's a couple of updates for board. So first, obviously, we now have a new Secretary of State, Victoria Atkins, who was announced as part of the Cabinet reshuffle. Ms Atkins' background is Permanent Secretary to the Treasury, but then more recently in criminal justice reform, safeguarding. So now Secretary of State for Health. Haven't heard too much in terms of key deliverables or key messages from the Secretary of State yet, apart from an intention to help resolve the industrial action with BMA and consultants. And you will have seen in the headlines and briefings that some progress has been made in that area with some agreements reached, and it looks like hopeful that industrial action will be avoided now with the consultant body as part of those conversations. Unfortunately, yesterday we had notification of junior doctors' industrial action. This is a significant announcement. So it is in a period of, I'll get these dates wrong, I've no doubt, but it's the 20th, 21st and 22nd of December. And I think it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th of January. So aside from the bank holidays, essentially it takes out junior doctor infrastructure for almost 2 weeks. I cannot underestimate the risk that presents to us as an organisation. It's less than 24 hours old, so we haven't had chance to group yet as an exec team or a leadership team on what it means in practice. I could tell the board, and it's true, about how well and adept we've become at managing through industrial action, working together as teams, covering each other and managing risk. I think this is a scale of challenge that we haven't seen before. So I can't give assurance at this point that the same approach will give us the same outcome. And we're going to need to do a lot of work over the coming weeks to make sure we're as safe as we can over that period. I saw from NHS providers late yesterday a statement that calls on those that are in the box seat to try and address these issues to stop the action happening, with all reasonable endeavours being asked for to avoid this happening. So again, less than 24 hours old. It is a significant step up in level of risk from what we've faced before, and we'll keep the board briefed, Chair, as we develop our own plans, mitigations for that period of time. The Chair mentioned finances. Chris, as the CFO, will also obviously update on financials. Just to pull out from my report, the announcement recently following negotiations with NHS England, the Department and the Treasury for additional funds for the NHS for the remainder of the year to recognise both the impact of industrial action on elective recovery and the financial position of providers and a number of other items. There's been an additional £800 million to be released nationally. That's been deployed at an ICS level and will be reflected in system financial forecasts to offset some of the risk. It still leaves us as a system and as a trust with significant financial pressures and financial risks to manage before year end. But I'll let Chris update on that as we get to that item on the IPR, Chair. From a trust perspective, we are rightly focusing on winter preparations. We will now shift into obviously mitigating as best we can the junior doctors action, but a lot of work on clinical strategy and clinical service development. We spent a good amount of time as an exec team talking about that yesterday and our 3 to 2 journey. Reminded yesterday actually that a lot of the work, Chair, whilst we have good ambitions to push on to soft 2, we have to take the time and the focus to consolidate our soft 3 position. If there's something that we've learned as an organisation in the past, skipping through regulatory actions or whether it's ratings at the CQ or similar, does not stand us in good stead for sustainable change and sustainable improvement. So we've said at board before, our trajectory and timescale for 2 is 18 months or more. And part of that is because we want to make sure that we embed, sustain and develop all of the things that meant we were able to exit Soft4. So we'll obviously keep the board updated on progress for that, Chair. We were due to meet with the National Maternity Support Programme on the 29th of November. The intention in that meeting was to present our maternity improvement progress, very similar to what we were expecting to do as the recovery support programme for the Soft4 review, with a view to moving us into a different phase of the programme for sustainability, so out of the mandated support. Due to a lack of attendance or availability for some national colleagues, that's now been moved to after Christmas. The intention is still the same, to talk about sustainability and our progress and moving us into the next phase of the programme. So I'll update the board as to that progressing. We are continuing to support Women's and Children's Services and the Maternity Improvement Programme with additional resource, and to make sure that in terms of sustainability, we've got the right leadership, we're putting the right resources in place to progress. And I know we're meeting with some of the non-exec directors to update separately on plans in that area, Chair. From a kind of regional perspective, it is very similar to the national position, a lot of focus on finance. There is a narrative in our organisation, in the system, that finance is dominating the current discussions. That is because we are hundreds of millions of pounds away from where we need to be on our budget. So it's almost unapologetic. We are responsible for quality, safety, performance, colleague health and wellbeing, and our financial budgets. And the dashboard that's flashing the loudest at the moment is finance. So it is right then that there's a regulatory intervention, there's a conversation about it, and it drives a lot of our activity. From a trust perspective, Chris's leadership in this space is really clear. The quality, safety and performance improvement is entirely integrated and dovetailed in our financial improvement trajectories. And it's why we've been able, Chair, over the last year or two, to lockstep some improvements in our underlying position, some improvements in our outturn positions for finance, alongside recovery support and the improvements we've seen in quality, safety and performance. So whilst it is true finance is dominating a lot of the agendas, rightly, we are not doing it at the expense of all of the other programmes of work that point at the whole dashboard for this organisation. It's important we say that here and that our colleagues hear that. Just a final update from me on some of the activities I've been doing to represent either the system or the trust. Delighted to be invited to the NHS Providers National Conference last month to talk about provider collaboration and system working, with a bit of a vox pop stage session with Sir Neil Mackay. That went down well. I was able to tell some honest truths about what works well and what doesn't, and some reflections from us, not as a blueprint as how to do it, but just some lived experience from our system. I was also able to participate in an aspirant chief executive event in Manchester with a group of 15 to 20 colleagues from the Northwest who've all put their hand up to say they would like to be chief execs in the future. And I think that's amicable and should be supported. So it was great to spend half a day with those colleagues. And was also pleased to spend some time with our shadow board. I know both the chair and the company secretary have mentioned that I had an hour of Q&A with the shadow board. I felt like being on Newsnight, but it was a great insight into how colleagues who've got ambitions to be executive directors kind of pose their questions, or the kind of areas they're interested in. I thought it might be around governance, assurance, risk and operations of the board. It was very much in the personal accountability, personal resilience, and the approach you take to leadership when you make the change. So for us, for me, a good reflection that actually it's still in that core leadership development and not necessarily the widgets of an operations of a board. So yeah, good to meet with those colleagues, and I'll do the same again in the future, Chair. Some headlines from my report.
Thank you. Lot to cover there. It's been a busy month. Any questions for the chief exec? Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. That was a really, really good report and a great explanation. Just on the attached report about the Integrated Care Board, and I think it says on 3.3, unfortunately, we are not making enough progress, and our Mum 6 position means that we're preparing for intervention. That's for the ICB. Could you say a little bit about that for the board and what that might feel like in terms of the system, and then maybe how it may relate to us?
Yeah, so again, I don't want to cut across Chris's update in the IPR, Tony, but generally what we've got as a system is We started the year with a very significant gap, all providers and the ICB, that ran into the hundreds of millions. You know, we started with around a £300 million problem at the start of the year. Each of the providers is delivering very significant cost improvement programs, 5% plus in most providers. That's a scale of change and challenge that we haven't seen across all providers before. If you remember at the start of the year, we were also asked to deliver some stretch targets. We were allocated across the providers some stretch targets. All of the providers are doing what they can to eat into as much of that stretch as possible. And I know as a trust, we're making our contribution in that area. From an ICB perspective, they are facing also significant pressure. So despite the challenges they've had on the structural change, the 30% headcount reduction, and the transition from CCGs and the onboarding of staff and the management of commissioning in that area, they've also made some significant inroads into cost reductions in year. But they're also left with a lot of pressure from two areas predominantly: continuing healthcare budgets and prescribing. It is two particular areas. So we've been tasked as a system to put our best offer forward. So with the allocations nationally, we had to submit something last week to say, look, we think this is our forecast. It is still a significant distance from target, but it's 198 million is the ambition as a system. And we're just engaging with the regional and the national team about whether that's acceptable or if there's any other work that we need to be doing together to come in. So I think some of the reflections in the IC board report, I would agree with. It's been difficult to get to transformational change. Capability and capacity needs developing in the system for large scale improvement, but we're on with that. You can see that building and starting to develop, but we are dealing with ultimately decades worth of, you know, very different commissioning decisions and different structural decisions. That's meant we've essentially got the structures and the costs in the system that it was designed to deliver, and that needs changing. So a lot of the focus for here and the system work will be in that clinical service transformation and some of the work that we're doing that Chris is leading on, things like financial allocations and financial strategic work to move to a better position for the system.
Thank you. Keith?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'm going to probably rehearse something that people heard in the past, but Aaron mentions, as he does every month in his report, that PCNs, where most day care is delivered, and neighbourhoods will develop along with partners across health and social care to deliver integrated care. And that, I mean, that just appears as a couple of lines. We then get to Kevin Lavery's report, where he says that, so I'm going to have to switch pages. I think it's in the second paragraph, just below the bit that Tony was talking about. He says, yeah, it's a bit where he has his interesting quote. But he says that we've got a good plan, but high risks requires trusts to work closely together, major hospital reconfiguration and the switch to community services, which is nothing sort of a revolution. It's interesting, in the past month, I do appraisals and I have contact with colleagues who are within PCNs and general practice, and their comment, and this is people I don't know who I've been appraising, have been PCN clinical directors who say that this was in our ICB area, that the PCNs feel totally unsupported and that the leadership of the ICB has a totally unrealistic expectation of what they'll deliver. And general practice feels cast adrift with all the changes, with the loss of organisational memory from CCGs going and all the people used to support. And then yesterday I spoke to my old practice accountant who actually does a lot of stuff nationally with PCNs, and he says that he described PCNs as the Wild West of the NHS at the moment, with a complete lack of accountability and a lot of money going into them, etc., etc. And a lot of money being diverted from core general practice into PCNs, and core general practice is suffering. So I don't understand how that picture actually fits with what Kevin Lavery is saying here. And I raise that because I think we should, as a board, be feeding that back to the ICB, and I'm sort of, that's one of the reasons I'm raising it, because I think it is crucial. If community is the way we need to really shift things to and achieve this major change and revolution, it just won't happen unless that's addressed.
Anything coming up?
Yeah, Hugh, I think that's a fair reflection of how people are feeling in some parts of the system, particularly primary care and PCNs. So I'm not going to speak for the ICB or
No,
the
I don't
government's
expect
report,
you to.
but we did have a 3-hour session as an exec team yesterday talking about the importance of clinical service design, clinical reconfiguration. If we're really going to take a step change on quality, safety, performance and the financial position, then all of our system spends most of its money on workforce clinical services and how they're delivered and where they're sited. We got into a really good discussion about acute configuration, and it was Jane that was making the point yesterday that says, actually, we need to have this end-to-end view of community primary care acute. If we're going to redesign pathways appropriately, it can't just be acute services. We then also talked about the importance of actually there needs to be less consumption in our system. So the importance of the population health and public health agenda. So we don't design something that's designed to manage the demand of today. It has to move in lockstep. So we're going to be part of the programme of work in the system with ICB on redesigning the clinical configuration of the system. It has to include community primary care. So the feedback we took yesterday that's going to go into ICB and the provider collaborative work is how do we best engage, get representation and leadership from primary care and community teams in the redesign work. Now, you and I both know, because we've grown up with Bay Health and Care Partners over a decade and the system work here, that the relationship and the contribution and representation for primary care is really difficult. To have someone with a mandate and representation is really difficult. So what we need to do is try and address that problem. So I think the point is well made. I think as a board, if we're going to be successful, Chair, we do need to find a solution to that partnership working. So take the point, we'll feed it into the system work establishment as it gets to be progressed, and we'll bring it back to board as it's finalised.
I'm really reassured by that, Chair. I'm sure, but reassured.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions on the Chief Exec's report? Colleagues happy to accept it? Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Colleagues, we'll move on then to the head governor's report. This will be in 2 parts. I'm going to ask Lorraine Crossley-Close to present her paper, and then I'm going to ask Shirley-Ann Wilson to say a few words as the new lead governor. So over to you first, Lorraine, please, for your paper.
For the paper, please just take it as read. The highlight of it for me is the fact that we are now, I'm not saying well into governor development, but we've certainly started the ball rolling, which is great for the governors of the future. And I'd just like to add as well that I wish Shirley-Ann every best wishes for the future that she's got within her hands now as lead governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'll just formally ask colleagues if there's any questions related to your paper. Are we happy to accept the lead governor's paper? Yeah, okay. So we'll minute formally, Lorraine, that we've accepted that. I'll ask Shirley-Ann to say something and then I'll say a few words. Shirley-Ann?
Thank you for putting me on the spot, Chair. That's what's called being thrown in at the deep end. I just wanted to say, a huge thank you to Lorraine for all the work she's done over the last 2 years. I've only been deputy lead for a year, but I've really enjoyed it. And Lorraine's just been so great and I've learned a lot from her. I'm really looking forward to the future. I'll just say this very, very briefly. When I first worked in psychiatry in the 80s, we had a poster in the staff room which said there is no I in team. And I think I've carried that throughout all my working life, really. And I hope that going forward, that's how we're all going to sort of, work together. And I feel very optimistic. And I hope for the board support as well as the Council of Governors support. So is that all right, Mike? Is that all I've got to say? Chair, sorry, not Mike. Chair, sorry. I'll get used to it. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome, Shirley-Ann, and looking forward to working with you. I know we worked with you for a year as the deputy, but look forward to working with you as lead governor, and we'll support you in everything that you wish to do.
Thank you.
Lorraine, and I know you won't like this, we spoke yesterday, but I have to formally go through this as the chair of the board and formalise in our minutes our deepest thanks and appreciation for the work you have done as the lead governor, not only within the trust and all the issues that we've had to face. You've been an absolute stalwart, and I know that you are a role model for governors, because other trusts contact us and ask us how we have dealt with or how we manage Council of Governor issues. I know that your reputation at the region and in the ICB is very high. You're seen as full of integrity, full of experience, common sense, a real team player. But at the heart of it, Lorraine, you are a real advocate for patients and our constituents. And it's been a pleasure, really, even through the worst of times, it's been a pleasure to know that we've worked side to side. So I'm thanking you formally as the chair. I'm going to open it up to colleagues just in case they want to say a few words. But thank you. And I'm glad, Lorraine, that although your time as the lead governor ends, you'll continue as a governor for another year. So we'll still work together.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anybody wish to say anything? Hugh?
Yeah, Lorraine, I want to echo all that you just heard, which is a very, very embarrassing, I know, in one sense for you. But I mean, over the 3 years that I've been a board member, I've been a chair of a number of organisations in the past and chaired boards. And when I think of the challenges that you've faced over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, as chair of the Council of Governors, I can't think of a more challenging time for a chair to have to face. And I think you've dealt with it with integrity, with perseverance, and always still, I don't know how you've done it, with a smile on your face, so at least publicly. And I know that you know, in private there've been some difficult times. So I just think the trust has a profound debt of gratitude to for all that you've done over the last 2 or 3 years. So I want to echo what Mike said, and I think my non-executive colleagues echo that as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Lorraine, I'll just end with, everybody's interested in the history of their local organisation. There are local historians, there are academics, members of the public, our own colleagues in the trust, governors, etc., who've always been interested and will continue to be interested in the historical development of the trust. I'm hoping that when history looks back at the period that you were here as the lead governor, they will always put in there that you, leading the Council of Governors, actually supported the trust in a positive and practical way, which has been shown in the CQC report, to help the trust move from soft 4 to soft 3. So thank you for that. I'm sure historians will know the work that you did as the lead governor and our Council of Governor colleagues in supporting us in the last 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And please, can I just make one note, Chair?
Yeah.
Don't forget Bentham, Adrian, and Aaron.
How could I forget that you are the champion of the Yorkshire and Lancashire border? We won't, Lorraine. And I'm sure if I do, you'll remind us. So thank you, Lorraine. I'm going to move on now to other items, but I know I'll see you in meetings. But it's genuinely meant. I really appreciate it. So,
thank you.
See you again soon. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, obviously, if you wish to, but I know you're busy. We won't take any objections if you leave us, but I'll move on to the next agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we're moving on to quality and safety now, item 146. Before we go through these really important reports, just remind colleagues that although this is not a public meeting, this is a meeting held in public. So there will be colleagues outside of the trust who will be observing us. So please, if you can, avoid acronyms. If you do use acronyms, be ready for me to ask you to explain what the acronyms are. It's just so that members of the public, etc., who are watching us, we don't want to confuse people. So please, if you can avoid acronyms, use full words, at least for the first time. Okay, then we'll move on to item 146, continuous quality improvement draft strategy. Chief Nursing Officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report or the draft strategy is here for approval. As you know, our ambitions to deliver on our trust strategy, which is clinically led and quality driven, we have to have some approaches in the culture that allows us to move from soft 3 to 2. And hopefully this quality improvement strategy will help us to do that with a focus on the approaches, our goals, our ambitions, and where we want to go. Please also note that it is linked to the clinical strategy in terms of interdependencies, in terms of where we want to be. So I've got Liz here, who's going to give us the highlights from the report, which is actually aligned to NHS impact in terms of national guidelines. Thank you.
My name's Liz McDougall. I'm the Associate Director of Improvement. Apologies for my voice.
She's not well.
So thank you for inviting me to share this draft strategy. There's a draft strategy and delivery plan included. This sort of came about actually part of our journey through SOF 4 around looking at where we were. We also had an independent review around looking at what the current team in terms of continuous quality improvement was delivering and able to deliver at that time. So this is based on the review of that, but also, as you have heard, NHS Impact, which is improving care together, has formed, and this aligns to the new NHS Impact ethos in terms of that improving care together. I understand you will have seen it and read the accompanying slides with it. So really, I just want to make sure that you understand it is aligned to NHS Impact. It identifies continuous quality improvement methodology and approach. It's obviously aligned to our strategic goals as a trust. It identifies some key things like building our capacity and capability around continuous quality improvement in that expertise. Also that culture of that and NHS Impact also aligns with this around that actually everything we do should be with a quality improvement science approach. Very much advocates shared learning and also the supporting the increasing use of measurement for improvement. And I won't say anything more. I'll open it up for questions.
Okay. Before I bring questions to Liz, thank you for coming to the board. I know not that well, so thank you very much. I'm going to ask the chair of the quality committee to comment because I know it's gone through quality. Anything you wish to escalate or bring to our attention?
No, well, we had a good discussion at quality 10 days ago about this, and my report outlines some of the issues that we raised, so I won't rehearse them again. Apart from one, which was the suggestion that the strategy could be strengthened in terms of patients and co-production of CQI, and Chief has picked that up and said that will obviously be taken forward and strengthened. We did note also that we didn't have the delivery plan at the time, and we requested that it came in, recognising that there were issues to be sort of agreed and finalised around the structure of support. So I suppose I have one comment regarding that, because having now read the delivery plan, which obviously didn't have available 10 days ago, when one thinks of, I'm not sure if I like this as a national term that somebody's dreamt up about dosing organisations in CQI. And I suppose as a doctor, that feels a bit like putting people through sheep dips or something. But I understand what they're saying about that the organisation needs a certain dose in order to get the impact that we want. But the numbers are really, really large in terms of when you're just going to get awareness, and then you get all the way through to specialist training, which obviously is the high level sort of almost the black belt of CQI. So it's an enormous amount of work there, along with the other deliverables for the strategy. And so my question is, when do we think we will have a conclusion of the discussions about the support structure? which, as I understand, obviously will include discussions across the ICB, because it's not just for our organisation, a lot of it's going to be ICB wide. And there's also the issue of AQUA membership, which I can see as, now, Chair, I can't remember what AQUA stands for. Having used an acronym. The Advanced Quality Alliance is a Northwest, it's a Northwest organisation that supports health and social care organisations in quality improvement. And there's an issue about the trust, whether the trust becomes members of that. So I think that preamble is about the desire to know what the timetable is for us to have the answers to those questions about the capacity that we'll have to deliver what's a very ambitious strategy.
Chief Nurse.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. The timeline for us, it will be end of financial year. So by end of March, we'll have had agreements around the capacity and capabilities to deliver those ambitions that you've just outlined. We are in consultation and discussions with other execs. So if board is happy for us to present something end of quarter 4.
You happy with that?
Yeah, I won't be here, Chair, but I do feel that's one thing I wanted to press the board on having a timescale for understanding that.
Chair for the Deputy Chair, you're happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sakthi, you want to come in with a question?
Thank you, Chair. It is really a positive movement with this continuing quality improvement strategy, especially with the advanced capabilities the Trust has on digital. It should particularly make it more exciting on the measurement plan that's been talked about. I just wanted to highlight that this is also an opportunity to ensure that equity is considered as part of the quality improvement. As we all know, safety, effectiveness, person-centeredness, timeliness, equity, and efficiency are all the major dimensions of quality. This is worldwide very well known. And we do, as a system, have a bit of a way to go in actually collecting information about diversity of our service users and patients. And I just wanted to highlight that we should not miss it. This is a great opportunity to embed that particular dimension of collecting information to measure whether we are improving quality across various diversity categories and ethnic minorities in particular. Thank you, Chair.
Good point, Sakthi. Thank you. I'll ask the Chief Exec and then the Chief Nurse.
It is just on that point, Chair. So I had a really good meeting with Ali yesterday, who raised a particular issue which I thought was pertinent for board. And the reflection was, Sakthi, that we spend a lot of time at the board statutorily on EDI issues for our workforce. A lot of focus on that, but we very rarely talk about health inequalities and EDI issues in our community and for patients, particularly when we talk about service delivery, waiting times, access. So I know Ali had attended a session recently. We're going to talk as an exec team about what that might look like in terms of how we report and use that to generate maybe different improvement actions under this strategy. So it was, it's a live conversation with us at the moment, and we'll look to bring something back to board in due course as to what that might look like in the way that we engage with board on that agenda.
Thank you. Anything you want to add?
Aaron is kind of covered it because I attended the same conference with Ali, and I do agree with you because the focus was we need to understand our communities, and we need to understand who is within the demographics that can be impacted by health inequalities. So I would welcome a discussion with you if that's okay in terms of supporting a way forward. So thank you.
Sakthi,
of course, that's it will be a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Nurse. Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz, for presenting it again. We obviously saw it at Quality Committee as well. I just had a couple of questions now we've got the delivery plan. Under improvement goals 1 and 2, it looks like there'll be a lot of people who will be engaged in the programme. So that's obviously positive in terms of embedding a culture, but potentially quite a large ask of colleagues. So just looking for some assurance about the capacity of colleagues to engage with this programme alongside other development programmes that are also ongoing. So that was my first question. And I'll ask my second one separately.
Okay, so in terms of capacity, but I'm well aware in terms of can be really difficult. I think some of what we as a team need to do is actually where people are absolutely aligned to doing some of the transformation improvements or improvements within a, you know, at front line level, is that the way we deliver our programs supports them to do it without taking too much time of their time, because I am clinical by background. I do understand what it's like in terms of that. So we will try and be as agile as we can to help them to learn it without taking too much time away, as well as increasing our overall capacity.
So just before you ask the second question, just for the minute, were you then seeking assurance or reassurance? 'Cause what we received there is reassurance.
Yeah, I was seeking assurance really, because but I guess this will align to the resourcing as well. So perhaps it's something that could be brought through in the update at the end of Q4, because I think there is probably something in here about obviously we want people to come to the programmes, but also there's going to be something about engaging them in the process in terms of wanting to come to the programmes and the communications that will need to go around that. So
we'll triangulate with other committees, is that what you're saying, and other oversight groups?
Yeah, I think it's just maybe there's something in the delivery plan about not just running sessions, but about building colleagues' appetite for engaging in the quality improvement, unless you've already got some assurance around that.
So we do a lot of marketing in terms of, you know, becoming engaged. We also, you know, try really hard in terms of where we're working with people to get them but we already are. I've had people talking, saying that they're wanting to do an improvement, and we support them in terms of do that. We have an intranet site where we have the ability for people to go on and ask for support and training. Where people ask for support, we will always help them to move into the training element, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. And I know one of these talks about relationship with people and HR as well, doesn't it? So I think that starts to come through. Yeah,
I want to make sure the minutes clearly state the assurance purposes that we're seeking. That's why I'll just check, Louise, are you responding to that?
Yeah,
point?
yeah, it's
Okay.
just to say we're also working with Liz and the team to develop a comms plan as well. So in terms of the wider awareness and opportunities for people to get involved with promotion, that kind of thing, the bit to get them interested, that will be picked up as part of that as well.
Great, okay, thank you.
I think Jane's coming in on that as well.
Team, I suppose, until we know what that final resource is, that's a bit difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm sure the plans of rather than just putting on programmes and people coming to them, there'll be the options to take them out to teams in existing meetings and existing structures to try and capture the whole areas at once, etc. So
yeah,
I think it's just it not described yet because we don't know what we've got.
Yeah.
Are you responding to that?
I just had a question, Chair.
I'll come back to you separately.
So I
Do you
think-
respond?
So I think the ask in March is two sides of the coin. It's actually the capacity of the organisation to deliver the support and training, and then the capacity of the people within the organisation to actually take that on. So it's twofold that we're asking for.
Okay, thank you. I'll
Thank you.
bring them in and then I'm gonna ask the chief. exec.
That's my second question, is that okay?
I do apologise.
No,
Let me just check this one. Jane, are you coming back to that point at all? No? Okay. Aaron, are you coming back to that point? Are you asking a second? I'll bring you in at the end.
You picked up what I was going to suggest.
That's the second
Yeah,
question.
thank you. First of all, thanks to Hugh for actually articulating better what I asked. I appreciate that. And my second one, it just comes back to this point about involving those with lived experience and the co-production. As we discussed at Quality Committee, it is reflected in Objective 3. It's not reflected in the delivery plan at the moment under Objective 3. So just when this comes back to Quality Committee, if we could just look a little bit more about how that will be integrated, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Amin?
Thanks, Chair. I guess my question was more of seeking assurance. I mean, it's a good strategy and a good methodology, but how do we ensure that the measurement is captured in a way where it resonates with what the chief exec said in terms of the financial, the quality, safety, performance type stuff? So one is on kind of measuring and auditing that those initiatives are delivering what we want. And then the second part of the question is how do we celebrate those as well internally so we can see those Because I imagine with the number of colleagues and plans, there'll be lots of things going on.
Okay. So firstly, some of it, we're already doing it through our fundamentals of care, as an example. It's part of our continuous improvement, and the measurements of where we are comes through the sort of IPR. In terms of transformation projects that are coming, we put them through quality impact assessments to actually make sure that the improvements we are making are within the envelope. But finance, okay, but we're also not compromising. So we do have a robust methodology for quality impact assessments to ensure that whatever improvement we're doing is within the finances, but it's also promoting quality and patient safety. I hope that answers your question. So
yeah, I'm just thinking more from a kind of auditing and validation perspective. So we have an initiative.
Yeah.
We believe it's going to deliver something.
Yeah.
But should we be measuring that ourselves, or should there be somebody who comes in the back of it to kind of say, yes, that's what it's going to deliver, and we can sign that off?
I don't think we're there yet, because we have got, like, for example, board accreditation, which helps us to audit through the AMAT, which is our IT system where we put all our projects. So we monitor the progress of that and the effectiveness of it through the accreditation. So is there an improvement within a clinical area, or is there not? It's done through ward reviews and through ward accreditation. We're launching ward accreditation in January, by the way, which is also part of the continuous improvement. So that's our way of auditing and saying.
We can triangulate as well. Yeah. Your audit hat on, because the quality subcommittee will be monitoring this as well, and in the action points that we discussed previously, and so we can cross-reference with that, and we can also get the results coming through on our improvement scores through the vet. So the audit committee can look at those and triangulate that. That would help with the oversight. Does that help with assurance purposes? Okay. And you made a really important point, I mean, right at the end there. We are involved in the business of the trust, and so often our attention is drawn to the challenges, the winter pressures, finances. But I think Min's made a good point. We mustn't forget that we just need to thank our colleagues and celebrate when colleagues are really in very difficult times, really moving the trust forward. So good point that, I mean, we mustn't take our focus off that.
I just want to add that the ward accreditations as well will allow us to celebrate, success within ward areas, because they will be rated. That's kind of a regional agreement around bronze, gold, silver. So we will mutually celebrate the achievements from the clinical areas as a way of motivating and inspiring people to continuously improve.
We look forward to getting updates on the ward accreditation. It's a really good idea. Thank you. Lynn Wyatt.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the question about how do we audit and know that we, successful and making an impact. Part of the plan for the structure and the resource for the CQI will involve. So we are planning to include the project management function, which will help with that robust planning, oversight, and monitoring milestones. So I think that will help with give some assurance about the process that will be in place.
Amen. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Colleagues, on that note, then, are you happy to approve the refreshed CQI strategy? Liz, thank you for presenting it. Approved for the minutes. Thank you. Colleagues, I'll just remind you of time. We're running about 10:10 now. The next item, 147, just started about 10 minutes ago, so just keep an eye on time as we move forward. We will stop for a break before we do the performance and resource section. But item 1471, review of the patient relations process. Chief Nursing Officer, you've got a busy morning.
I have good. Oh, thank you, Chair. Following last board meeting, there was a request around our complaints and if we could sort of review our process. and have a trajectory in terms of how and when we're going to see an improvement. So this report is here to give assurance around some of the work that's been carried out within our patient relations teams, and is going to be presented by our Director of Governance for us. It also links to MIAA audit, which is Mercy Cares something audit. Sorry. Thank you. So over to Richard.
Richard, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So, Chair, in the interest of time, I won't stray too far from the front cover and make reference to several points there, and then happy to take questions. So item 1471 was, as the Chief Nurse explained, an ask to ensure that we have some grip around our complaints management at this time. You may recall back in June or July when I came to board, we talked in the aftermath of the CQC visit and their regulatory notice with regards to their requirement of us to improve our complaints performance, by which we mean the rate at which we can respond with a robust, high quality response to patients and relatives who have made a complaint. So this is a whole work stream that's involved a lot of supporting a team get to a better place, both in terms of how they felt about their work and what they were doing and their relationships with care groups and how they supported that work and how they engaged with them. The performance with regards to how we progress complaints promptly, accurately, and with high quality in mind, as well as being better placed to understand our own data. It's fair to say that we struggled previously to really understand our exact numbers at any one point over the course of a month. So it is with considerable pleasure that I'm able to report we are better at understanding our numbers. We are not perfect yet. There is still a discrepancy between how we articulate things on a ULICEF safeguard and how they appear in quick sense. And there's also a time lag thing because this is a dynamic topic that moves on a daily basis. And to demonstrate that and to reflect on what I said to board earlier in the summer, our performance is such that as of yesterday, we have 0 complaints responses greater than 6 months of age. We signed, rather kindly, the Chief Executive signed off 3 yesterday, which meant the only outstanding task greater than 6 months was to have a meeting with a family, which at their request is now being scheduled for the middle of January. So we consider we're clear on that. With regards to complaints that are older than 5 months, we have 5 that we're tracking, and we expect to have them all cleared by the 31st of December. And then within the 40-day to 5-month cohort, there are some 74 complaints in our active system and a further 54 that are either 0 days to 40 days old. So in total, we've got 132. You'll note on point 4 of the report, we say 134. And again, it's an indication of the fluidity of the work that we're doing. This report was shared with the Quality Assurance Committee last Monday, and we discussed it there. And I'm happy to take any questions with regards to this report before I move on to 147.2.
Thank you, Richard. We are asked as a board to note the report for assurance purposes. So I'll ask the questions I directed around assurance. I know there will be questions. Who wants to go first?
Thanks, Richard. I'm conscious of the CQC report, which highlighted this in particular as one of the reasons for well-led still being requires improvement. So I think you and the team are to be congratulated on moving through a process change, team development that's now leading to essentially patients getting a better experience through the complaints process and being managed more quickly. Are we now in a position that if the CQC reviewed us today, that the statutory or legislative requirements or performance requirements that sit in the well-led framework would be achieved? Or have we got more to do in terms of those timescales and numbers to satisfy that benchmark?
We do indeed, Aaron, have a bit more to do, and I would predict that we'd be in a place to go back to the CQC to declare our compliance around the nuance of the regulation, probably towards the beginning of the next financial year, certainly in Q4. So it's just about the detail of how the regulation is set out that we need to double check with. But I can take that away as an action and come back or send back to the board an answer with regards to that specific question.
Thanks, Richard. If it's okay, Chair, could we ask the Quality Committee just to receive that assurance statement of having passed the CQC benchmark, and then just, I think it'd be okay through the Chair's action on the report, Chair, rather than.
Yeah, and on that note, this would have gone through Quality Committee. Hugh, anything you wish to escalate to us?
The only outstanding issue that is in the report that Richard hasn't mentioned is there has been a challenge regarding the staffing of the quality team in terms of appointing a key member of staff and then some long-term sickness. Now, we've been reassured that was all being sorted and will be sorted by January. I would propose we have the same feedback to Quality, that that's all being sorted and is in place. And I know we also have had some concerns about the amount of support that team has, and I would suggest that that's tied up in that report, that the support that surrounds the team is addressed in that report of the Quality Committee, because so we don't want to fall back into the same position that we found ourselves in the last few months with vacancies and people on long-term sick. So
to summarise, Richard, we asked something around staff well-being to come to the Quality Committee in this team. Yeah, thank you. So capacity and well-being. Yeah. Karen Deeney, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Actually, Hugh has just addressed the point that I was going to raise, so that's covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugh. Mentioned the dispatches. Okay. Any further questions on this report? We know it's important. We know it's part of the drive. We know, Richard, we're well aware as a board that every single one of these complaints is a real human being who's experienced something that they're unhappy with the trust. So we're very sensitive to this. So we look forward to further work being done and the reports coming through to the Quality Subcommittee. But for that, thank you very much. I ask colleagues, are you happy to note the paper? There are assurance processes that you covered. Yeah, okay, thank you. 1472, the Patient Relations Annual Report. Chief Nursing Officer to lead again, please.
Thank you very much. Again, over to Richard to take us through the annual reports, which is an overview of the complaints, compliments, comments, and concerns that have been handled during 22-23 period. Thank you.
Richard, over to you again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief Nurse. So just a couple of points I wanted to mention about this. So it's fair to say that next year we will make sure that you have this report in front of the board probably no later than September. So we've lost a bit of time. We got a little bit desynced with where this report should be going and when it should be going, and then we had a change in patient relations manager. So forgive me for that. It's coming to you 2 months late. A couple of points to reference for you. First of all, report was discussed at Quality Assurance Committee last Monday. The Quality Assurance Committee asked me to explore whether any of the complaints in the year 22-23 were referred to the Parliamentary Health Service Ombudsman, if I could see any themes or trends across those. So we have gone and had a look at that, and we can't see any obvious overwhelming trends or themes in that regard. Couple of other points to mention. We're going to do this differently next year because I suppose if I was sitting in the room with you, some of you might be looking at this and saying, so what? So the answer to the so what question is actually wrapped up in Appendix 3. And Appendix 3 talks about a patient's story, their experience, that has culminated in a complaint, what we've then done with it and what we've learned about it, and critically, how we've then gone and changed something in our systems and processes. So for next year, what I would want to do is make sure that Appendix 3 is front and center of the report, and everything then just fans out from that. Yes, there's some numbers I have to give you, but it's much more, important that we share how we've changed things as a result of that vital patient feedback. And just picking up from a comment made in board when I joined earlier, I will, absolutely make sure that this report next year contains protected characteristics intelligence, so that we can be assured that our patients are not suffering a detriment in terms of their complaint being handled and answered in a prompt enough manner, but also the experience that they had with regards to care isn't influenced by a protected characteristic. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. That's a really good suggestion as well on both, actually, the central thesis around real patient experience and the protected characteristics. So there'll be a number of questions. Before I bring colleagues in, I'll just check again with the Chair of Quality Committee, because I know you've screwed that. Anything to bring or?
Richard's answered the main issue that we.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I'll start with Adrian then, please. Then I'll go to Carrie. Adrian Leather.
Thank you, Chair. It was Carrie first, but I'll go with it. Thank you. So thanks for the report, Richard, and it's really comprehensive. Really pleased that you're going to look at inequalities going forward. You talked about the protected characteristics just in the last little statement. My question was just going to be, just to help the board understand where we stand. Is it possible to include some triangulation information going forward about how we stand both within the ICB and nationally, just so that we can look at the number of complaints, obviously per 100,000, etc., just so that we can see in terms of the positives and the negatives, the balanced narrative that we are getting, whether we're in an outlier, whether we're in the middle of the pack, whether we're indeed low, and we need to actually encourage more interaction with our patients around this really important narrative. Thank you, Chair.
Who would like to respond to that? Richard?
Both go. I'll go to Richard first.
I thank you for the idea, Adrian. I think that's really great. Yes, absolutely. I think we could get into a dialogue either via the ICB or directly with my opposite numbers in those provider organisations to do a bit of benchmarking and local economy context. I think that's a great idea. It might have the effect, as everyone has to produce an annual report, of delaying it a little bit, but nonetheless, I will take it as an action and definitely explore with my peers and other organisations how and why we should do that. Not least because of our Appendix 3. You know, there's 4 other organisations that would be interested in our Appendix 3, so we should get into that sharing of improving practice based on a complaint in Blackpool can influence stuff in East Lancs and vice versa.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Richard. Carrie, my apologies. Second time this morning I've brought you in second. Your hand went up first, so
it's all right. I won't get a complex. So thank you for that, Richard. I just had a question. It looks like on page 71, it mentions Medicine Care Group having a lot of patients wanting a revisit to the case after receiving a response. So I wondered, is that around we're not actually answering the questions that they've raised, or is it a training issue in the way that we've responded? And then second to that, I noticed in your previous reports on page 54, that of the ones exceeding 6 months, 4 of them were revisits. So is that the same care group, or is that a variety of care groups, please?
Okay. I'll take your first question first. So I actually think that this is the the 22-23 report is a point in time. What you would see done differently now, and in answer to your question, is that I think we've moved to encouraging lots of patients and relatives to have a dialogue with us, to come in for a meeting, and to set that up as a much more effective means of answering their questions with real clinicians in the room, rather than a letter from you, a letter from us, and then an exchange, which then introduces a whole load of new risks around how the question can be contextualized, taken out of context, etc., etc. All of that is avoided with meetings, and that's what we're pushing more and more to do with the care groups. The care groups prefer it and are then able to give a much more nuanced, informed answer that avoids, I suspect, a significant amount of revisits because of that inability to articulate it clearly on paper that you can do in a room with people. So I hope that helps assure you that whilst we have had revisits, I'm confident that more meetings with patients and relatives reduces the chances of having revisits. In terms of your specific question about the previous report in reference to the number of revisits in there, I'd need to go back and check to give you a forensically accurate answer as to whether that's all in one particular service or care group.
That can be done outside of the board then, Richard, direct to Carrie, and then Carrie can follow it up. And that point you made about you're giving us your perception of the assurance, that'll be correlated with the quality committee so that we don't, you know, wander into you're giving us reassurance. We need to make sure that what you're saying about the objectives and the revisit, which sounds very sensible, is correlated with the data found in the quality committee, so that we can just triangulate that assurance. So thank you for that. And thanks for the questions, Carrie. Really good ones. Alison.
Chair, just really quickly, Richard, in the lessons learned sections, in some of them I struggle to see what lesson was learned. Now, I appreciate that there isn't always a lesson to learn, but on page 91, for example, there was a lady who complained because she'd been left waiting a long time for breast reconstruction surgery. And it says the surgeon has been given a list of all the patients awaiting follow-on surgery, and we're in constant communication. Okay, doesn't really seem like a lesson learned to me. And then a patient had to wait 8 hours for medications on discharge. So we know this is a really difficult conundrum to solve, but it doesn't say anything about pharmacy technicians or offers of people to go home and to come back later for meds. It just sort of says the team know a patient is, when a team know a patient's plan for discharge, the medication prescription should be completed at the earliest opportunity.
Yeah.
It just feels a bit like a bit of narrative and yeah.
I accept that entirely. It's not nearly as powerful as that Appendix 3 could be, and hence why I'm committed to making it sort of centre stage for next year's report. And we will QA the lessons learnt in terms of what we've managed to extract from that experience. I'm even not happy that we're just doing it on upheld complaints. If you see at the top of that, it says upheld complaints. Actually, I think whether your complaint is upheld or not is irrelevant. Your perception is that you've not had a good experience, and we should be determined to do something about that. So upheld or not, we will, in the 23-24 version, have a much more robust, clearer lessons learnt section that is centred to the report rather than an appendix, because there is no point to this other than that. But yes, I can't answer specific questions about specific ones, but I do accept entirely what you're saying, that we need to be much clearer about what's been learnt.
And then also, Chair, how some of the complaints then inform some of the continuous improvement projects going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Richard, I think that's guidance for you to take outside of the board, but I guess this is one of the lessons learned, which is feedback from the NEDs, and that's part of the lessons learned on how we can improve the presentation and then triangulate it with the CQI work. Yeah. Okay. Quality improvement. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Alison. Any further questions for Richard? No, we're asked to note the paper for assurance purposes. taking into account the chair of the quality committee's feedback, we're happy to accept it, to note it for assurance, and the work is ongoing. Richard, as always, our thanks to you for your conciseness. We'll see you again, no doubt. You take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Colleagues, item 148, maternity safety update. I see you there, Donna, but I'll go through protocol and ask the Chief Nursing Officer to open this paper.
Thank you, Chair. This paper is here again for assurance in line with our clinical negligence scheme for trusts, which is we normally refer to it as CNST. So Donna is here to present because she's our governance lead and the best person to be able to talk to us about where we are around
direct questions to Donna as well.
To Donna, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Donna,
Thank you, Donna.
Just before you come in, Donna, I'll just check again with the director of the quality subcommittee, because they considered a number of papers, including the obstetrics, anaesthetics, medical workforce report, and the maternity incentive scheme year 5 report. So I'll just ask the chair of the quality if there's anything to escalate to the board.
I thought I'd been promoted. No, we had nothing specific about the 2 reports, which were particularly for CNST purposes.
Thank you. Donna, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to highlight and advise the board that we currently have no ongoing HSIB investigations. HSIB as of October have moved over to the maternity, neonatal and safety investigation branch, but I'd like to advise that we have no ongoing further. We've received our last report. Our training compliance for our staff groups for the CNST for year 5, we have met compliance for medical staff and midwifery for fetal monitoring and newborn life support with inclusive of our neonatal doctors. We are just under 90% for our anaesthetics. However, I'd like to advise the board that in October, NHS resolution sent round following a emergency CAG meeting advised to all maternity services that regards to prompt training, there was an extension of 12 weeks because they took on board the doctor strikes that would have impacted maternity services achieving 90% for our core staff groups. I'd like to advise the board, as of compliance today, our anaesthetic doctors are 88% and obstetricians are just under 90. Our trajectory with the training courses set for December says that on the 21st of this month, we will be above 90%. So we will achieve that within the 12-week extension that NHS resolution have given. I'd also like to advise the board around the Blackpool critical incident and just pay tribute to our midwifery and neonatal colleagues who extended support during that critical incident on the 7th and the 10th of November, where we provided mutual aid to 14 women. That included inductions, intrapartum care, postnatal and neonatal care. And we have received several plaudits from families for the recognition of the care. I'd also like to advise the board that the Entonox suspension at home births has been lifted on the 13th of November, so we are providing nitrous oxide to women in the community now. Within the maternity update report, we have included a section which is a requirement of NHS resolution to demonstrate the executive and non-executive safety champion relating to table 2 around the access of resources for maternity safety champions and how that's supporting the perinatal cultural leadership programme. Within the reference pack, we've also included the anaesthetic workforce paper, which we presented at Quality Assurance Committee last week, which demonstrates that we're fully compliant with the on-call anaesthetic duty rota for 24 hours a day dedicated to obstetrics. We've included our maternity incentive scheme paper update, and we will be presenting at board in January with the evidence by the Director of Midwifery and the clinical director to demonstrate that we are currently on trajectory for that 10 out of 10. Within the paper, we reference that we did seek advice from NHS Resolution regarding Safety Action 3, which was relating to transitional care. They have advised, because we've had the business case approved and sign off to go forward with a 24/7 service for transitional care nurses, that they will deem this safety action as compliant for the year ahead because we have a plan in progress. In relation to Safety Action 8, I've already explained the plan in process in relation to our anaesthetic and obstetric training, which will be above 90%. So we're just shy at 88% currently, but it'll be above 90% by the 21st, and they've granted all units that extension. We've also had quality improvement discussions with the LM&S. That's a new part to the Year 5 scheme. So we had our second quality improvement conversation with them in the last 2 weeks. They have reassessed our Saving Babies Lives Care Bundle. You will see within the maternity update report, at the time this was written, we were 69% compliant. I can advise the board now, we are now 83% compliant as of the last assessment with the LM&S 2 weeks ago. In relation to the maternity incentive scheme, I can advise the board today we will be submitting 10 out of 10 evidence to Trust Board in the January submission, which will be presented by our Director of Midwifery and Clinical Director. Happy to take any questions.
First of all, Donna, my thanks, and I think on behalf of the board, for the fantastic work. What a great report to come to the board with, you know, this is an assurance paper, so please pass our thanks and appreciation back to colleagues.
Thank you.
We've had an update from the Director of Quality. I'll ask the Chief Exec to come in, and then there will be questions related to the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Donna, hi, it's Aaron. Just a reflection from the Chair's comments there. We often hear from Heather as the Director of Midwifery. I think it's fantastic to hear your input at board today. Particularly the role that you've played over this last period. I gave a board update on the My Chief Exec's report around the maternity support programme review for sustainability. This is a great example of some assurance as to the progress, the continued focus, the continuous improvement trajectories that we are developing. I know firsthand from feedback I get from colleagues about the leadership role you play within the team within maternity. So some personal thanks from me as Chief Executive, and I know Tabitha speaks very highly of the input you've given. It's great to see you at board today. So thank you personally. I know the Chair was quick to say thank you to the team, and that's right and proper. I just wanted to recognise your leadership in this space.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you. Donna,
thank you.
I'm going to open it up. I'll start, and then I'll bring in Hugh and then Alison. Just a few questions from me. On item 3, sadly, we've had a neonatal death of a 13-day-old baby and 1 stillbirth in a multiple pregnancy. And those are being referred to the perinatal mortality review tool. Can I just check with you, where is the process thereafter? What committees, etc.? What are we doing to ensure that we're doing a full mortality review?
Thank you. So to advise, the first thing is when these cases happen, we undertake a 72-hour review. So within immediately, we're looking at, is there any care and service delivery issues that we need to look at? That is first presented at the executive review group to review to see if we need to undertake any further investigations for learning. In both of these cases, I'd like to advise the board that there was no issues identified in either case. Sadly, one case relates to a 13-day-old baby that was co-sleeping on the sofa with the parents, and that will go down the PMRT and CDOT process. In relation to the second case, it wasn't expected. It was a multiple pregnancy of a demise at 28 weeks, and the lady continued the pregnancy and had a live birth of the other twin at 36 weeks. In relation to where they go from a PMRT, because we've got no care issues identified from the 72-hour reviews, we undertake a monthly quarterly PMRT review report, which is produced our Women's Health Quality Board. I present also to the Maternity Safety Champions. It's a standing agenda item to update if there's themes and concerns. And I also write a quarterly PMRT report to board, which highlights any issues, themes, and has an ongoing action plan as well. We also share learning with the system, with the local maternity and neonatal system regarding our PMRT cases.
Thank you. I just wanted that minuted so that we're clear in the board about the assurance process. And then another quick question from me. Item 5 and 7, the learning from incidents in October. And you've said, you know, there was work undertaken, there are no other women affected under item 5 and under 7, process changes with the birth of the baby. How do we get any assurance that therefore there are preventative measures to stop those incidences reoccurring?
So we do the shared learning in relation to any of our incidents. So shared learning we do in a 3-minute brief that goes out to our ward handovers, and that's repetitively read for that week. If there's individual learning, that happens as well with the appropriate, whether it be an obstetrician with the clinical lead, educational supervisor, and midwives by the professional midwifery advocates. In relation to item 5, what I would just say was that was a one-off occurrence, and we know that because we've undertook a look back exercise of since that clinician has worked at Morecambe Bay of all their sutures following a caesarean section, and we are assured that that was a one-off occasion, and that hasn't happened in any other cases. In relation to the information governance, we're doing wider work. There's wider applicability with item 7 that you've picked up on regarding information governance. So we are starting to build an action plan within WACS, because where we saw a trickle coming through around this particular theme, we are now seeing some themes around handover sheets. So for me, there's wider applicability and shared learning around information governance still to go ahead.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing how that work's progressing. And again, just for the minutes, Donna, WACS is Women and Children's Services. So,
correct.
Jane, if you're coming in response.
I was going to the previous point, actually, just to support Donna in that for all neonatal and children in fetal deaths as a child death overview process, which is a multi-agency response, and the named nurse for safeguarding and the team are heavily involved with that, and any learning and good practice are reflected back to the trust. So, and we attend all of those meetings.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go then. Hugh and Alison.
So just one issue that we need the board to be aware of, the CNST sign off is due to come to a January board. There isn't a board in January. So we have asked Director of Nursing and to well, I don't know if there's any update on what will be acceptable to CNST, because that does need to be addressed.
I'll ask the company secretary, but again, for the minutes, clinical negligence scheme for trusts.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We've looked at this following on the request, and board members will be aware that we've stepped down kind of a public board meeting, but we have scheduled a meeting for the 3rd of January for the purposes of predominantly a winter update from Scott, but we'll include that on the agenda for that meeting to make sure that we meet reporting requirements.
Thank you.
Listen, please.
Thank you. Just again to reiterate, it's a great dashboard. I love all the information that's in there. It's taking a lot of work. Thank you. Picking up on some of the maternal morbidity. So it's good to see that postpartum hemorrhage has gone down to return back to common cause variation, but we are still nationally an outlier, as we are with 3rd and 4th degree tears. And also I think with the episiotomy. So there's something around, it's great that we're in a stable system, but actually the performance is still not where we want it to be. So I'm just interested in how the audit's supporting improvement in those areas of maternal health.
Thank you. I'd first of all like to advise the National Maternity Dashboard is currently under review, and it's under review for several reasons. One, around some of the complexity about the way that they're displaying the data. Many units have now gone to SPC charts, and the way that the data is formed is quite complex when you look at it. Two, we must also take into account the demographics in each area as well. So they are re-looking at that and making around adjusted risk in relation to the data. In relation to the progress we've made at Morecambe Bay, acknowledging that last year when I arrived at the organisation, we were an outlier in relation to what we were seeing with our own figures when we looked at them. We have implemented national guidance in the summer of last year, which is tranexamic acid. And that has been implemented for all our caesarean sections, and that's where we've really seen that impact make effect in reduction of our overall hemorrhages. The next step to our quality improvement project that we're doing going forward regarding hemorrhages is we are implementing a postpartum hemorrhage risk assessment tool. This has been successful in many units because it's about the risk assessment when they come in at the start of their labour, or at the beginning of an induction, or when they come in for admission for their elective section. So there's pre-planning at that stage around the appropriate drug management and advising the woman and gaining consent. In relation to 3rd and 4th degree tears, we're at the beginning of starting to unpick the OASI bundle. So the OASI bundle is the obstetric anal sphincter injury bundle that was recommended from the RCM and Royal College of Obstetrics some years ago. And that was implemented over a year ago, but now starting to pull the metrics with the teams around the successful implementation of that, I'm seeing that it hasn't been fully embedded. So an example of that is the antenatal education that you give women around perineal massage, because we know that really does reduce perineal damage. When I start looking at audits of assurance that that's happening in the antenatal period, I can see we haven't actually got robust evidence of that. So at the moment, I can't say that that has been implemented to make an impact sustainable at the moment, and we're taking that right back to the beginning of the QI project.
Alison?
Thank you. Just the other thing was the episiotomies. That if we had 120 vaginal births in September and 35 of those, and there were 35 episies. So I know there's instrumental birth, I get that, but it's 30% still seems quite high.
Yeah, the episiotomy rate is associated with the obstetric anal sphincter injury QI to do with the Royal College of Obstetrics. It is a model that is recognised and supported. And it isn't, so it is one of the QI metrics that we are looking at.
Thank you.
So we would expect those figures to alter in subsequent reports. Keep an eye on those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alison, yeah. Okay, thank you. Aaron, please.
Oh, thank you. Just briefly, I just wanted particularly to echo Aaron's comments just to Donna, and just to highlight for the board that the kind of systematic, thorough, persistent, professional, detailed information that we've heard today from Donna absolutely reflects, I think, every conversation I've ever had with Donna, and certainly reflects what comes through Safety Champions and through the wax boards. And I just really wanted to highlight that, because what it's enabling is us to ask really clear, data-driven and informed questions. And that's just critical for embedding the improvement that we've seen. So it's just, yeah, just really want to highlight the importance and the continuity of that.
Karen, we'll minute that, and we don't need to write to you or anything, Donna. You've heard it verbally. Thanks to you and the recognition of the work that you're doing. Colleagues were asked to accept the report for assurance purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking into account the comments made and the further work to be done. We're happy to accept the report. Donna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay, then we'll move on then to the Deputy Chief Executive Trust Improvement Plan. after this item, we'll stop for a short break.
So Chair, I think I can take this one largely as read without reading it all out to you. I think
so.
Yeah, it's just one thing to add, and just to remind people what the report's about. It formalises the position about the closure process that we advised the board we would follow for the RSP work stream. So you get the latest updates and report on that. And it also provides an update of where we are on the trust improvement plan programme of work. There will be a substantive update in February to the board on that, because December is quite a big month for us to confirm benefit realisation plans and the timetables that the board would be interested in for delivery of that. The one thing I just need to add is on licensing conditions, Chair, because I did advise the board at a previous meeting. I'd anticipated I would have come back to you on what the revised licensing conditions would be by now. I have followed that up with colleagues at the region, and they've advised that they expect to issue draft licensing conditions to us in December. So I haven't updated you because we haven't received them yet. Of course, we will report those at the earliest opportunity once we do.
We'll take those as to note then. Thank you. Any questions on this report? If it's an update report, it will come back in February. It's an ongoing process. Okay, we're asked to note the outcome. Oh, sorry, Sarah.
Thank you. So it's not a specific question on the report, but where we've got the programmes of work going forward, like the outpatients programme, which we touched on earlier, can we receive that as a substantive item at board at some point so we can understand that in more detail and seek some assurance around the programme and how it's being developed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this will adapt, because of course we won't be reporting on RSP work streams when they close. So you will be getting a more detailed report on the components of that. If we want to go into detailed work streams, Chair, I mean, that might be a workshop session, something like that.
Sarah, you happy with it as a workshop development session? Good proposal. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. So we're asked to note the outcome of the 6-month sustainability report for the FTSU mortality deteriorating patient clinical effectiveness work streams. Just tell us what the FTSU is, please.
Freedom to speak on.
Thank you. It's just for the minutes. And then number 2, the progress being made to establish the programme work under the Trust Refreshed Improvement Plan. Yep. Thank you. Then we note those 2. We accept that paper. Thank you, Deputy Chief Exec. It's just coming up to 5 to 11. Should we have a 10-minute break, colleagues? Colleagues on Teams, 10 minutes break. We will reconvene at 5 past 11.